Welcome to a brand new week here on 100 Huntley Street. Our goal here is always to keep you informed, and an important court decision came down on Friday that will affect generations to come in this country. In 2013, Trinity Western University in British Columbia was given full approval to open a law school. Well, provincial law societies in British Columbia, Ontario, and Nova Scotia voted to refuse TWU's law graduates admission and refused to consider TWU an accredited law school, while other provinces, including Alberta and New Brunswick, voted in favor of the new law school accreditation. This all has to do with TWU's community covenant, which students and faculty must sign. Well, on Friday, the highest court in our country voted 7-2 in favor of the BC and Ontario law societies, voting to not approve Trinity Western University's proposed law school. Our CEO, Lorna Duick, recently wrote an article in the Globe and Mail about this issue. Let's go to her now on the set of Context with her guest, author and professor John Stackhouse.
Well, to help us understand what the Supreme Court ruling actually means in application, John Stackhouse, the Context blogger, professor of ethics and religious studies at Crandall University. Thank you. John, we're shocked. I'm shocked that living and signing a biblical code of conduct means you cannot practice law coast to coast in this country. Am I taking it too hard?
Well, no. When the Prime Minister pushed that Canada Summer Jobs thing, I thought, good, somebody's finally gone too far, and it'll give the Supreme Court room to kind of back off. You actually can push things too far, and I really hope they'd back off and say, you know, we really do have to accommodate each other. Canada's a place of multiculturalism officially. That only means something if you're accommodating important differences. And there was never any worry that Trinity Western graduates wouldn't be competent lawyers. Nobody's ever suggested they wouldn't do a great job. It's all been about the principle of the thing. And he said, well, which principle? And the principle should have been the accommodation of legitimate difference with no real harm to anyone else. And instead, this strikes me as simply ideology. We don't like your views, and we're going to let other people discriminate against you.
Okay, so we know our Supreme Court runs by the practice of law is a living tree as the branches come and go. You know, when we got Christian teachers out of Trinity Western University, that had to also go to the Supreme Court, and it was deemed your Christian view is part of secularism. It's part of what makes Canada. I'm shocked that we've changed so much in those few years from when the teacher's degree was granted that we now can't also have law degrees.
Well, I think for a certain class of Canadians, it really has become unthinkable to think any other way than they do. And that's really scary because it shows that they need to get out more, they need to make a wider circle of friends, and they need to understand the Canadian culture around them much better. We do disagree about a number of different things, and we got to accommodate each other.
Professor John Stackhouse, thank you very much. And you can read more about this on our website. Pop in with your opinion as well. Thank you.
Joining me live is Earl Phillips, the Executive Director of Trinity Western University's proposed law school. Welcome, Mr. Phillips, to 100 Huntley Street.
Good morning. Thank you.
You've had some time to look over the ruling. What are your thoughts?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I have looked over the ruling, and it needs a lot more looking over. There are some real concerns for me as to how our Charter of Rights is apparently being turned on its head. And that's a concern.
Now, the justices did acknowledge that the court's decision infringes on religious freedoms. Justices Brown and Cote, who voted in favor of the law school, stated, quote, the decision not to approve TWU's proposed law faculty because of the restrictions contained in the covenant, a code of conduct protected by provincial human rights legislation, is a profound interference with religious freedom and is contrary to the state's duty of religious neutrality. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, I agree with that statement. It is a profound interference and restriction on Trinity Western community religious freedom, and I agree with their statement, and I share their concerns about the Charter of Rights, which applies to government actors only. Those obligations are now being projected onto Trinity Western and its community. And it's the citizens of Canada and the people of Canada who are to be the beneficiaries of the Charter, not the parties that have obligations under it.
And that leads to my next question. What does this ruling say to those of us Canadians who have a personal faith?
This is where I think we are going to have to be very careful, look at this closely. The decision clearly recognizes and supports individual religious freedom and beliefs and would protect those beliefs. What is becoming more at question is to what extent are those beliefs allowed to be manifested and practiced in the public square? And so that's something that we need to look at. At this point, the decision is very clearly about the particular proposal for a law school at Trinity Western under our community covenant. But we do have to be concerned about, does it have implications beyond that? What does it have to say about the practice of faith and people and communities of faith being out there in the public square in a variety of ways?
Absolutely. Well, what's next? Will TW change anything? The community covenant, what are your thoughts about what will be the next steps?
The community covenant is something that has been reviewed and modified in the past. There's been something like the community covenant since the founding of Trinity Western way back in the early 60s. So it has been reviewed. We will be reviewing it again. It's something that we really have to take a lot of time to reflect on as a community. What does this mean to our mandate to be a Christian university? What does this mean to our mission in where we want to train up leaders for all the marketplaces of life? So we're going to have to take some time to think what we do next.
And how can Canadians pray for TWU, the proposed law school, and all that's happening today?
Well, it would be very helpful. Pray for us as we seek to discern on this issue and as we consider and analyze and discuss and reason. Pray that be the wisdom of God that would guide us in that. We need discernment, we need wisdom, we need humility, we need grace.
Well, we will be praying for you, TW, and all of the leaders at that school today. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Phillips, for your time.
Thank you, Maggie.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Felt like the end of the world to me, and it felt like I didn't have anything left to live for.
Rather than being elated or thanking God that I was still alive, that I had another chance, I started picking up more Ambien off the floor that I'd spilled.
At the revelation of Jesus Christ, our trials will result in purpose and honor and glory.
I hadn't done anything except gotten prayed for, and I wanted to know more.
The person that says hope is what keeps me alive can also go, well, wait a minute, if I have hope, there must be joy here too.
And then we see that, wait, there's purpose in my difficulty, there's purpose in my trials.
I tell people that I took my own life and God gave it back to me.
I felt something I'd never felt before, which I now know is the Holy Spirit.
This moment doesn't have to define me. With sorrow, with grief, with anxiety.
Jesus heals, and that there is hope for me, and it doesn't matter what doctors say, and it's just like somebody gives you an injection of life.
My guest is living the life she thought she never wanted. Wait till you hear how God changed her wanter. Teresa Swanstrom-Anderson is here from Denver, Colorado. Teresa, you had wonderful ambitions for your life.
I did.
Tell us what you wanted to be when you grew up.
My plan for my life was to get my master's and ultimately my doctorate in art history, move to Europe and be curator at some fantastic museum, preferably in Italy, because I'm sure that's a really easy job to get, and live an international life, being a light in the art world.
Wow, and you were on a roll. You did get that art history degree.
I did, yeah.
What happened?
Well, I realized one day while sitting and doing my devotions, I'm from Seattle originally, and my favorite spot to read and journal and pray was on a park bench overlooking the Space Needle. And I would just watch the hubbub of the city down below, and one day the Lord was just kind of whispering the words more and bigger over my life, and I didn't know what that meant. But as I was watching all the hubbub down below, the ferry boats kind of caught my eye off to the right. And as I was watching the ferries just so dreamily drift from downtown Seattle to the islands, I felt like God was saying, which life are you after? The really busy one where you're just turning your wheels, or the one with intentionality, going from one place to another? And so that day I realized, you know, I'd never consulted God in any of my plans or my dreams. I realized I was living a life for Him, but it's only amazing if it's built by Him.
Interesting. Someone once said, if it's not God motivated and God directed, it's not God blessed.
Absolutely.
That's what He was saying to you.
Yeah.
What about me?
Yeah.
Now, a man named Ben
Yes.
came into your life, and I think this is a really, obviously, a key component to what God would reveal to you. Mm-hmm. Tell us about Ben.
Ben and I worked together for a number of years, and he's 8 years older than I, so it never occurred to either of us that it would ever be anything. And one day we realized that through our friendship, we had fallen in love. So we were engaged 4 months later and married 4 months after that.
Now, you come from a church tradition, from a true faith, household of faith.
Yes.
Ben had a very different background.
Yeah, he comes from a life of abuse, and he never graduated high school. He was homeless. He eventually got his GED and went to college and ended up actually graduating with honors. But
so he comes with familiarity of brokenness.
Yes.
And hardship.
Yeah.
And trauma.
Mm-hmm.
How did Ethiopia come into the picture?
Yeah. We were...
Not Italy.
Not
Ethiopia.
Italy. Well, we were at an auction, and we were not even engaged yet, but we knew that we were going to be married because, you know, it was a very short courtship. And there was a black and white photograph of a little boy in Malawi praying. It just spurred a lot of conversation that night, and it was almost like the blinders just fell off of our eyes, and we realized that's it. We knew we wanted to live a life out of the ordinary. We just didn't know what that meant or what that bigger or more that the Lord was whispering on us really truly was. So we knew adoption from Africa specifically would be in our future. We just didn't know when.
Wow. You have two very interesting acrostics, acronyms for fear.
Yeah.
And I want our viewers to see, I'm sure, what you wrestled with.
Yeah.
Because your two greatest fears, are we ready for this, were kids. You didn't want anything to do with kids.
I did not like kids.
Or Africa.
Yeah.
Kids in Africa. God has a sense of humor. So take a look at this. You obviously wrestled with these options.
Yeah.
Fear is either forget everything and run, something was stirring in your heart, or face everything and rise. Yeah. How did God get you over the hump?
That's such a good question. I think ultimately just knowing that I was created for something and realizing that if I truly, truly trusted Him, like I said that I have for many years, hasn't He created me for something? Hasn't He done more than just for me in my mother's womb physically, but also the insides? So even though I was scared of children and scared of Africa, He knew that I was made to be those kids' mom. And He wasn't giving me my dread. He wasn't like chuckling and elbowing Jesus up in heaven.
Let's see how badly we can really shake her up.
Yeah, He knew already that I was made for this.
Let's mention, too, that in your earlier school years, your family had been in Guatemala with poverty and desperation and guerrilla fighters, a real threat through those years. So there was some preparation evident.
Absolutely.
Well, wait till you see the not dreamed come true. Don't go away.
Still to come on 100 Huntley Street.
And we got, you're so naive, you're going to destroy your family, you're doing too much too fast. Not a single person supported us, not one.
I've come to Rome to find Paul, to write his story, to remind us how God changed a hateful man who will change the history of the world.
Where sin abounds, grace abounds more.
Paul, Apostle of Christ, on Blu-ray tomorrow.
Teresa Swanstrom Anderson has discovered that trials and testings are the making of us. They grow our faith and ready us for more of what the Lord has in store. She now says the plans she had for her life were beautifully interrupted when God holds the pen that writes your story, is encouraging, challenging, full of wonderful quotes and Bible teaching, the lessons from God's Word that encouraged you. And can I quote your mom? Mom's wisdom: blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. Wow. Afraid of kids and Africa, and God brings both into your life like a tsunami. Tell us what you and Ben embraced. First of all, you had two lovely boys.
We did, yeah, two little blondies, we call them. At the time, they were 3 and 4 when we brought home our first baby girl. And then we just kept bookending our kids and doing everything we're not supposed to do.
Yeah, like a little Imani, just, I'm sure she would have died so malnourished. And those children, the love and the nutrition, just is like watering a plant that's choking. They just come to such wonderful life. And there would be ultimately 2 girls. And I think the biggest challenge was adopting a teenager. I mean, even last week, I saw a woman, a single female pastor in Oklahoma. God told her to adopt this teenage boy from the foster system. Even the people in her church said, you don't want to do that. You're buying into trouble. And what ended up happening was something that influenced not just the young man's life and her life, but the whole community, creating an interest in just risking and giving those teenagers a home. You got the same message. Don't do it.
Well, I think the hard thing is, as of, you know, we had all of our family, all of our friends praying for wisdom and discernment over bringing home kids that are biologically, or, you know, older than our biological children. And we got, you're so naive, you're going to destroy your family, you're doing too much too fast. Not a single person supported us, not one. And we got scared and kind of said, okay, well, I think that's maybe not for us after all. But ultimately, we realized, you know, God does crazy things. And people say all the time, God's not going to give you more than you can handle. That is not true. It is not in the Bible anywhere I have looked. And He does give you more than you can handle. But, you know, those moments that you hold white knuckle to Him and remember just how desperately we need Him.
Oh, that was just one of my favorite quotes. Shannon Martin: falling into the will of God takes guts and grit we don't have. Of course we're nervous. We can't handle this alone. And that's precisely the point. Desperately dependent on God. And what did people see? We've obviously had to condense a journey of how many years through all these adoptions?
It's been 7 years.
7 years. The children's ages now?
Now.
Let's have the picture. Let's have the picture. Look at the picture. I hope we can see even more than one. Go ahead.
They are 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 18.
Beautiful family. And I mean, your 2 boys, how did they embrace all this change and growth? And I mean, these are children who come with cultural baggage. Some have been traumatized.
They, you know, even a child taken up from the hospital, there's still trauma there. And I think that we forget that. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say it's been easy all the time. It's not been unicorns and rainbows every moment, but it's been so very worth it. And just showing unconditional love no matter what, and showing Jesus and clinging to Jesus the whole time.
We can tell just by looking at that picture, just by looking at you and your long, from high school you wanted pink hair.
I did,
right,
20 years. It took me the guts to do it.
Right. I mean, this is just part of your growth, the creativity bug, that your artistic bug is all over everything you do. We just have to look at you and see that God honored that. He put all those desires in your heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you most want your readers, not just of your book, your blogs, what do you want them to take away from your journey?
Yeah. I think that I just want to have them see themselves in it. I don't want for someone to pick up the book and think it's a book about adoption. It is not. I mean, that's part of my story, and my story is adoption in Africa. Their story is going to be completely different because God tailor makes, plans and dreams and aspirations and assignments for each of us. So just finding what those are and trusting God enough that He actually does know what He's doing.
It's a wonderful story. And here's another wonderful quote. Nelson Mandela, no less, said, "There is no passion to be found playing small in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." The Apostle Paul said, "I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received." Worthy is your publisher. Yes. Name of the publisher. And God, here's God's commitment. He says His plan is good, pleasing, ultimately, and perfect.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to miss that, Teresa, would we?
No.
Because we're being held back by fears.
Right. And He doesn't say easy, but it's worth it completely.
Well, look at this woman with all those people waiting for her at home. Wow, that's the message right there. Teresa, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you've been encouraged, beautifully interrupted. Let God do it. Stay put. Back with more.
Before God spoke into the world, it was a vast darkness, a void space, empty and lifeless. Then He started to create His amazing masterpiece, painting a beautiful world, filling it with stunning creation. When it was done, He sat back and rested. He knew His creation was good. He knew it was meant to be shared together. So He created us in His image, the image of creativity, uniquely designed. His fingerprints all over us. And here we are. We are a glimmer of hope, creating like our Creator. Together, we paint the bright colors of hope and life. Together, we share the real stories of redemption and grace. Together, we are the light that shines spectacularly. Together, we inspire. We don't just live in His stunning creation, we are His stunning creation. We are active tools infused by our Creator to share His creative love to those around us, drawing them to their Creator. Together, we inspire.
Have you ever questioned why you believe in the Bible and Jesus and the resurrection? I know earlier on in my walk, I definitely had those questions, and I wish I had this book with me at that time. The name of the book is Why I Believe, and we are offering it to you all this month, written by author, pastor, international speaker Chip Ingram. Now, Chip, you talk about, in the chapter where you talk about the defense of the resurrection and why we believe in the resurrection, the characteristics of Jesus, and that cannot be questioned. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We think, actually, he's the epitome of even other religions of virtue. Jesus' response to the poor, Jesus the liberator of women, Jesus who raises someone from the dead, Jesus who feeds people. In Islam, he's a great teacher. I've met imams in the Middle East who, through the Quran alone, studying the life of Jesus, said he has to be more than what they've said. His ethic, his character, even his enemies couldn't deny the good works that he did. Hospitals, orphanages, they all flow from this heart of Jesus that says to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so the very character of Jesus is the epitome of who wouldn't want to be married to someone that has the characteristics of Jesus, or wouldn't want their mom or dad or their kids to act like Jesus. And you have to ask yourself, where does that come from? He was fully man, he was fully God, and he came for a reason. John 1 says, no one has seen God at any time, but he has explained him. And so he lets us know what God is like, and that's why he's so attractive.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chip. Who is Jesus to you? Is he your friend? Is he someone that you can rely on? These are things that we cannot question. He is who he is. The Bible is clear about who Jesus is. And so the question is, do you believe in the Jesus of the Bible? Do you believe that he walked this earth as a great man? The Bible talks about being an imitator of Christ, that he is a great person that we can imitate and follow after. I'd love to get this book into your hands, Why I Believe, to kind of strengthen that belief in the man of Jesus, in the God of who Jesus is. Why I Believe, straight answers to honest questions about God, the Bible, and Christianity.
These days, we're constantly bombarded with different ideas and views claiming to have the answers to life's big questions like, if God is good, how could this happen? It's tough to find satisfying answers, and we or our loved ones end up asking, what really is the truth? Where do we come from? Is there life after death? Does God even exist? Can we believe the Bible? You'll want your personal copy of this comforting new book from best-selling author and popular 100 Huntley Street guest, Pastor Chip Ingram, Why I Believe. Straight answers to honest questions about God, the Bible, and Christianity. Call now to request your copy when you send a ministry gift this month of $50 or more. Why I Believe will help you know what and why you believe. It will bring you God's comfort and peace and equip you to encourage others facing personal tragedies in their lives. Quantities are limited, so call today, 1-800-265-3100, or visit crossroads.ca/believe.
I hope you're enjoying these segments with Chip Ingram. And when you call and order your copy of Why I Believe, you are supporting this television show. You're making sure that we're able to update you on stories like Trinity Western University's decision, and also to remind you of how you can continue to pray for religious freedoms in this country. If you are not a partner yet of this ministry, could I encourage you to become one today, and then we would love to get Why I Believe into your hands as a great thank you gift. We hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you've been informed by the show and maybe encouraged as well, that maybe there are challenges in your way, but God is true, that he's faithful, that he loves us, and he has a plan for us today. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a member of the Canadian Council of Christian Charity.